Yeah, that's
Okay.
great.
Okay, awesome. All right. If you haven't got something to write with, this might be a good time to grab something. I'm going to lay out. It's a program that I put together a few years ago, and we rolled it out to all of Tom Ferry's clients, and then every coaching company I've been with since has kind of done the same thing. Here's the challenge. So this is all about your money, right? And what was happening is I was going out and I was coaching people, and I would ask them, hey, how much money did you make last year? And inevitably, they would all give me this really astronomical number, right? 100,000, 200,000, 400,000. It didn't matter. It was a really big number. Do you guys have any idea what the average CEO of a company, and these are, large companies, the average CEO of a company makes in an annual salary? Any guesses?
Um, Over 200,000 a year.
That's what I thought too. The average of all companies is 150,000. Most real estate agents, I mean, how many you sell 15 homes, you're basically at 150,000 in gross commission income. So the number I realized that everybody was giving me was the gross commission income. The challenge with that is we, as arrogant, stupid real estate agents, self-employed, we felt like that's really how much we were making. And so we created a lifestyle around that kind of income. We bought fancy cars. We go on vacations. I don't know if you guys watch social media, but it doesn't take you long before you trip into a real estate agent who's on a beach in Hawaii or, hiking Kilimanjaro or whatever. Normal people don't get to live those lives, right? And most of us aren't selling enough houses to live those kind of lives either. And then what happens? Well, the same thing that happened to me when I first got started into real estate. I was doing this. I was making really good money. I'd get the checks. They didn't take taxes out. Then my tax bill came due, my first tax bill. I don't know if you guys have ever had an experience like that, but that was a little uncomfortable. In fact, it was so uncomfortable that I lied about it. And then I got a visit from somebody in a suit one day, happened to be from the IRS, and they did a full audit. When they show up in person, they're serious about it. It was not a very comfortable, process for me. So here's what I want you guys to do. We're going to put together a financial program for self-employed people. It works really well for real estate agents, and that's what we do. So that's what we're going to talk about. When you get a check, my recommendation is to cut that check into 4 pieces. When you're self-employed and you're not a member of a team, those 4 pieces are a 40, 30, 20, 10 plan. 40% of your gross check goes to your personal expenses. These are things like utility bills, groceries, gas, cars, houses, whatever it is that you need to live on. You get 40% of that big check, and that's what you get to use. 30% of that big check should be reinvested back into your business. Every business requires money to run and run effectively, whether you're, buying leads, whether you're spending money on new tools that pop up. A big mistake that Melody and I made is when Zillow came into existence, instead of embracing the new technology, we pissed all over it. We didn't like it. We, put down people that were using it. You guys, why are you buying your own leads back? And because of that, we missed a tremendous opportunity to jump in and really take advantage of a new tool because we were, resistant to it. So 30% of that check should be reinvested back into your business. 20%, that gets set aside for Uncle Sam, for taxes. We live in an amazing place. We drive on amazing roads. I don't care which political flavor you belong to. It really doesn't matter. But the fact is, we live in a land of abundance, and we need to put some of our income back into taking care of our country and taking care of everybody else, right? So that's part of that. 10% I recommend going into a long-term savings account. That savings account you can use, and I recommend using it to buy real estate investments, to create passive income, to, create mailbox money, whatever it is that you do. A lot of companies offer 401ks. We have to be purposeful about doing IRAs or whatever it is that you're using to set money aside for retirement. The best form of retirement is to create enough passive income that all of your expenses are being paid without work, right? Because of the assets you own. So 10% of every check should go into that. Now, if you're working on a team, we're going to tweak these numbers just a little bit, because hopefully your team leaders are spending some money on tools and on business stuff so that you can spend a lot less. So in that case, 60% of your check. Now, when we're talking about your check, this is the check that you get. So if you're on a 70-30 split, and it's a $10,000 check, you get $7,000. That's the number that you're counting all this with. So 60% can go to personal. That would be $4,200 on a $7,000 check. 20% goes to taxes, 10% goes to savings, and 10% still gets reinvested back into your business, because there's still some expenses that you're going to have, whether it's gas to put in your car to go on a showing, or whether it's business cards, or whether it's social media stuff, or whatever it is, right? 10% should go back into your business. It could be a new phone when those come out or whatever. So 60, 20, 10, 10 is if you're on a team. A 40, 30, 20, 10 is if you are self-employed. Now, that's pretty easy when you start to think about it, right? That's not very complicated. In fact, you can go into your bank and you can tell them, I want to fracture my account. Like, you can have a checking account and you can fracture it into 4 little pieces, so that each different piece, every time you drop a check off, and at our bank, they do this for me, right? I know them well enough. When I drop a check off, they go, oh, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. 40% goes into this account, 30% goes into this account, 20% goes into this account, and 10% goes into this account. That's how we work it. For the tax account, if you have a problem being disciplined and not touching that money, if that becomes an emergency fund for you, I recommend putting that in a different bank that you don't have online access to. So in order to get that money, you've actually got to be purposeful enough to drive to a bank, walk in, show them your credentials, and to get that money. Put as many barriers as you can in between you and getting that tax money, because that money doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the government. We just hold on to it for them until it's time to pay taxes. Does that make sense? All right. Now, here's the downside, guys. What did I just tell you? That $100,000 a year income is now really just $40,000 a year. And you could probably, honestly, in today's, economy, go to a fast food place, manage it, and make more than $20 an hour full time, which is basically $40,000 of your salary. Now, the reason I bring all that up is because that's really what you're making, right? Now, $200,000 in gross commission income is about $80,000 a year. Now, that's a pretty good income. That's a pretty good income. For most people, you got to spend 4 or 5 years in college. For me, it's like 8 to 10 years in college to make that kind of money. But, just kind of be prepared so you know what you're looking at. Now we realize, oh my gosh, it's not easy money in real estate. We have to work. Now I've got to close, 14 to 15 deals a year in order to make 200,000 gross commissions, which gives me, if you're on a team and you're making 200,000, that's 120,000. That's fantastic. If you're a solo agent, now you're, to make 200,000, you're at 80. Does that make sense? Okay. Now here's the next step in this, right? What's the problem? What do you guys see as the problem with this budget program? Anybody else been tight in a month and then have a deal fall apart? Yeah.
Yes.
I've had that happen way too many times in my career. And when that happens, what do? Well, now I got to go to a credit card, or now I got to go to my bank and get a HELOC or whatever it is, because I don't have any money in savings. So the next piece of this is you want to put together an absolute minimum. And when I say minimum, I do 6 months, but an absolute minimum of 3 months in reserves in your personal account and your business account. So 3 months in reserves. So when you build up enough money, now, if you don't have any reserves and you need everything that you're getting out of that 40% check, 40% of your check, then instead of putting money into savings, put that 10% in until you build up a big enough reserve to cover 3 months worth of personal reserves and 3 months worth of business reserves. It's critical that you build those up as quickly as you possibly can. Anything can happen, right? You could get a disease, you could get sick, you could get COVID, knock you out for a couple of weeks, you're not able to prospect, you're not able to work, and all of a sudden you got a big problem because you haven't got any reserves. So I do 6 months. I highly recommend 6 months. And by the way, I don't have 6 months right now. I've been utilizing that to make sure that we have tools and everything on the team. So we're looking at figuring out a way for us to make this work as the market has shifted a little bit, right? So just to kind of give you guys an idea. Now, that's all the level that most of you guys are at right now. That's all you need to worry about, right? But I'm going to take this one step further. And this is for people who are consistently producing every single month in real estate. There's a lot of people that I was working with and that I continue to work with that were fairly consistent, but still didn't have savings, were running into problems to pay for, tools or whatever in the real estate business. So here's the next level. After you've created 3 months in reserves in personal, 3 months in reserves in business, you've got your lifestyle dialed into the 40% of your paycheck and everything seems to be running. You're starting to put money into savings and everything else, everything's good. Now, what we want to do is during our business planning time, which for Melody and I happens in September, right? We usually take the holiday at the beginning of September, end of August. We go on a little trip and we do a planning session. We do a life planning session to see, are we on track? Are we where we want to go? What changes do we need to make? So we're never too far off track. We can just adjust and keep moving forward. So during your yearly plan, you're going to put together a budget. And that's going to be really easy because you're going to have enough of a history to be able to create a budget. So here's what your budget looks like. I want you to take your worst 3 producing months in the last 12. That could be January, July, and August. It could be December, February, and April. Whatever they were, the 3 lowest gross commission income months from the last year. You add all of that money together and you divide it by 3, and that will give you your average monthly income for your worst quarter. Why do I base it off of the worst quarter? Because most of the time that's not going to happen. And so if we create a budget based on our worst 3 months from the past 12 months, we're going to create a surplus. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll talk about that here in just a second. So any questions on that? So we know how to arrive at our budget number. The worst 3 months, add them together, divide them by 3. That's our average. Your personal budget is 40% of that number. So you want a budget for the next year based on 40% of your average monthly income from your worst quarter in the last year. Your business budget is going to be 30% of that number. Now, I have a lot of people that say, Rod, when I add up my worst 3 months and I divide it by 3, I get 0. I had 3 months at 0 last year, whatever, right? So we got to create some consistency. So if that's not there, we're working on the other budget program. But if you get here, that's what you do. Now, you create a salary. So 1 month, say the month of June, which is typically a good month for us, you closed 15 transactions and you made $110,000. But what you've done is you've created a salary based on your worst quarter last month. So what you do is you pay yourself not the $110,000 at 40%. You pay yourself the $4,000 or whatever that budget number is, and the rest of the money goes into your personal account. Let's say May, June, and July were huge, and all of a sudden you have $300,000 plus you've got 6 months in reserves, and you've got all this money in your personal account. Once a quarter, you get to bonus yourself the money out of that account if you'd like. So if you got 300,000 in there and you paid yourself 4,000 a month, 4,000 a month, 4,000 a month, covered your bills, you created a lifestyle around that number. Now you get a bonus of $300,000, and guess what, guys? You want to take the next year off, go for it. You want to take, the month of December off, go for it. You want to go on an amazing vacation that you've been planning forever, go for it because you've earned it, and that's a bonus that you pay yourself. Make sense? Now, Rod, what if I pay myself this really big bonus? Well, if you've been following the 40, 30, 20, 10 principles and you put 20% of every check into a tax account, guys, you're going to have some write-offs. You're going to be able to do some stuff by the time tax season comes around, you're likely going to be okay. You guys realize that the wealthiest people on the planet don't pay taxes, right? The only people that pay taxes are the people in the middle class and lower. That's why our government's broke. It's because the wealthiest people in the country don't pay taxes. So when you're making that kind of money, what do? Well, you go talk to an accountant. He's going to tell you to buy houses, and he's going to give you some ideas on how to reduce your tax liability with depreciation or whatever else it is, right? So there's ways to do that. So when you start making a lot of money, you're still going to be okay with that 20% going toward taxes. Now, you guys can tweak this, right? Let's say you need to add 6 months together to get a reasonable budget instead of 3 months, right? And so that you have a positive number or whatever it is. Well, Rod, what happens if after I calculate everything, the 40% is not enough to cover my car payment and my house payment and my utility bills and everything that I got to pay? What do you think the answer to that is? The answer to that is start to sell shit. You've got too big of a lifestyle. You have 2 options. You either have to create enough income to cover all those, or you were stupid like I was at one point, and I got to sell my shit so that I don't end up bankrupt, right? Which is okay. Like that happens, guys. We made the best decision based on our current awareness. Nobody goes out and sabotage their lives financially or any other way. It just, stuff happens because we make the best decision with limited awareness. So that's my recommendation for a budget. I promise you guys, if you follow this budget, you're going to reach a point in not very many years where you've got money to invest, where you've got money for taxes. Tax season used to be the biggest, most stressful period of my entire year because I was living on more than I should and I didn't have enough money to cover all my expenses. That's a scary place to be. It's also not very fun to, what's going on right now? Thank God my kids are all graduated, right? But school season, and you're buying new kids' clothes and you're buying books and all that kind of stuff. That crap gets expensive. That's why we need to be prepared and move this thing forward. All right. I know I went fast, you guys. Sorry, I know I talk fast, but putting these simple disciplines will create more freedom for you. When you're raising kids, giving them boundaries and giving them direction is not hurting your kids. It's actually helping your kids to be better citizens and to be prepared. People thrive under boundaries. If you're unbounded, you're a disaster. So create little boundaries for yourself, create some accountability, talk to significant others, do whatever it takes to get yourselves right financially, because when you do, guys, the freedom on the other end of a little bit of discipline is unbelievable, right? It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's really cool.